put your hand way high up in the air if you've ever thought, oh my gosh, I can't decide on a product. Or maybe you have decided on a product and then your mind automatically starts going into overthinking, overwhelm, overdrive on if the decision that you just made is actually a decision that you should be making going forward. Well, if you've had those thoughts, then today's podcast episode is dedicated to you. Welcome to today's podcast episode Because I Can Live. Hi, I'm Alison, and I'm so glad you made it to this podcast episode. And I know I feel like I say that every single time because the interviews that are coming in are mind-blowing. And this one, guess what, is not going to let you down because in business building, 95%, I know Tony Robbins says it's less, but I think it's a lot higher. I think 95% of business building is actually in your head. Things that you didn't think were going to be an issue are going to pop up when you start building your business. You're going to start overthinking things. You're going to feel overwhelmed in a way you've never felt it before. You're going to feel very vulnerable. And let's face it, you're going to have a hard time making decisions. I mean, I feel like sometimes we have to make so many decisions every single day that the decision at the end of the night for what's for dinner gets to be like the hardest decision of the whole day because the decisions we've been making throughout the day have just exhausted us. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring in one of my momentum coaches. Her name's Megan Whitesides. She's been with me for almost a year, and she has been helping entrepreneurs break through some of the head stuff they didn't even know that was in the way, and things that have to do with the decision making, the overthinking, the overwhelm, all those feelings that can creep into our head and actually make us stop. And she's bringing in some amazing tools to help us to be able to push that aside so that we can move forward with our business and become successful and have these stories that we've been hearing, like Brittany, her story of taking the DIY products and building an almost $1 million company. Macy, her taking t-shirts and hitting the $1 million mark. Katie Evans taking a bowl and then putting candle wax in it and hitting over $3 million. Like, there's so many good podcast episodes with entrepreneurs that have just started that have had to get through some of this head trash, these head thoughts, these head swirls to be able to build their dream businesses that they are living in today. So this is why I wanted to bring Megan in. I don't want you stuck anymore. I want you to make that decision. I want you to lower that overwhelm, and I want you to step into your beautiful Because I Can life. All right. Are you ready? I'm excited for today's podcast episode. Let's dig in.
I would say, yeah, like Alison said, I'm a certified life coach. I actually also teach preschool in my home. And I have coached in Alison's next level coaching group, which has been awesome and amazing. I talk a lot about that. I also talk a lot about overwhelm because I know with all that you guys are doing and just life in general, overwhelm is a big one. Decision making is, I think we make it up to be this like hard thing. Like, I can't decide. I'm just trying to make this decision. I don't know which product to sell. I don't know, on back and forth. And it's just as easy as just deciding. Like, the whole drama that we put into trying to decide is a lot of wasted mental energy. So I think, I don't know what it is for you guys, maybe in particular that you're most struggling with, but if it's possibly, like trying to decide on a product or which, email service provider to take or to use, whatever it is, the best advice is just choose one and go with it. And now I also know it's hard because sometimes we question, like, well, did I make the right choice? But another way that I find is really helpful when trying to make decisions and trying to decide is to maybe set like a time frame on things. So if you are, again, I'm back to products because this is kind of Alison's what she does. But if you decide on something and set, again, like a time frame, whether it be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, however long you decide, that just makes it a little bit easier when the time comes for you. Like when your brain goes to like, well, maybe I should sell jewelry instead of clothing, or maybe I should sell this instead of that. But if you've chosen like, okay, well, for 6 months, I'm going to do this one thing, then when that creeps up and you're questioning yourself and those thoughts come up, you just have to guide yourself back to like, no, this is what I've decided for right now. And you can use that and do that in your personal life too. It doesn't just have to be in business, but I know I use that for myself also with, well, a lot of things, but it's like, okay, well, for this period of time, I've decided and I've chosen this so that then again, and it's not to say that those thoughts aren't going to creep back up, but it's just reminding yourself. Another thing too, with decision making, I think a lot of times we try to think like, and I don't know if necessarily it's for you guys, but like, which is right or wrong. And I don't know if necessarily that comes up for you, but I don't know if like, well, if this is the right thing or that's the right thing, and sometimes I think it's not even necessarily a right or wrong. It's just, what do you want? What would be most fun to you? What would be easy? Because a lot of times the things that are fun and easy are going to be the things that you stick with and the things that you continue with. So it's really helpful also to kind of even ask yourself those types of questions. And then also, when things do get hard and do get difficult, like that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path, or it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be pursuing whatever it is you're pursuing, or again, back to the product, chosen that product, or any of those types of things, because it's through those hard things that you're going to grow and that you're going to learn the skills and the tools you need for whatever it is you decide to pursue in the future. So that's a little bit, I didn't know how much time.
Love it. So I have so many questions about this. Okay. So I have a question. Okay. So let's say we choose, let's say we're like, all right, let's do the earrings business versus clothing or whatever. We're like, we're going to choose. Right. And then there's these feelings that creep up. Right. And then our brain goes into this overthinking overdrive. And I see some people nodding like this is a very common thing. How do we say, get out of our head? Let me just get the facts on this. Or is it the overthinking of, maybe I should do this? And it's almost like a ping pong ball tournament happening within our head. What do you recommend to stop with the overthinking?
Okay. Well, so I guess when you were saying that, I tend to go to overwhelm. How many of you guys have overwhelm? Raise your hand. Anyway, I know I for sure do. I definitely have it a lot less. And I'll teach you something real quick that will be really beneficial with the overwhelm, with the overthinking. I think kind of all those can kind of go together, and you can sum it up with, kind of, like I said, overwhelm. So basically, you're going to feel terrible. And you're going to have negative emotion for sure. I like to use, a few different things, but first of all, the simplest thing you can do is just write. Like I had this happen anyway, just over a week ago, because I was planning some big event thing that I had was going to, and I was feeling a lot of overwhelm. And
now I kind of want to know.
It's interesting because when you want me to tell you? It was
you don't have to tell us, but I feel like that was a hook.
I can tell you,
like wanting to know forever.
Okay, sure. Well, everyone, it doesn't matter. I don't want to take up too much time. No, I was planning the girls camp for our church, the young women girls in our church. And I was planning the camp for them, and it was last week, and it went great, and it was fabulous, but yeah, it was good. It was great. But so anyway, prior to that, I was feeling a ton of overwhelm. All the thoughts came in, like I wanted to do a good job. I wanted it to be fun, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so what I'll teach you really quickly is that a few things that you can do that will help you to handle the overwhelm, that will help you to handle the overthinking, the over analyzing, all those types of things. So the first thing is just to write. Like and usually when we are feeling any of those feelings, it's not anything that's going on outside of us. It's all the things that are in here. I have to do this, and I want to do this, and and I need to set up that thing, and I need to set up my Instagram page. And anyway, I'm sure you guys have tons. Sorry, I haven't paid attention to the questions, but I did just notice someone said journaling. Yes, kind of like journaling, but more so, I just call it like a brain dump. Like you just get out a piece of paper. And again, back to time, I like to sometimes even set a timer for like 10 minutes just to get it all out. Because sometimes if we think we have to sit down and write or journal, it's like, but sometimes it's messy, it's ugly. Like sometimes there's things on there I don't want anyone to see or read because it's maybe things that I'm thinking that, again, I don't want there to, so you can throw it away, but basically just write. So that's the very first thing. So I like to envision like that I envision like there's this glass fishbowl and there's like tons of little goldfish and they're just swimming around and around and around in the tiny little goldfish bowl. So I like to think of our brains and the thoughts inside of our brains like that. Like they're just kind of all swirling around and just going around and around. Well, I feel like a brain dump is like pouring out the fish. So you're like spreading it all out so that you can see everything. So that's the same with your thoughts. So you're like getting them out of your head and you're getting them onto paper so that you can see what's there. And so then so again, back to the analogy of the fish, if you have all these fish out there, then you can pick up and you can choose a few fish to put back in the fishbowl. And then you can nurture them and you can have, however many are in there, 5, and there's space and they can, swim freely. So kind of back to the same thing with our brain dump. We're dumping out all of our thoughts. Then kind of picking back up the fish, you're picking back up these thoughts and deciding which ones that you want to keep. Because definitely there's thoughts that are beneficial for you and helpful to you. There's thoughts that are definitely not helpful to you. So that's the first thing, is just to do a brain dump, just to get it out. After you've written everything down, you're just going to question like everything that's on there. And when I did this just over a week ago, some of the things on there are just so funny because it's like, but that's all that's going on in my head at that moment. So some of the stuff was, we, 6 months ago moved into a new home. So it was even things on there that were silly, like, I want to decorate this and I want to buy this and I want to, but again, in that moment, part of the overwhelm was thinking of all those things as well. Mm-hmm. So then if you're questioning all those things that are on your list, then you can decide, okay, well, that can be done. That doesn't have to be done today. That can be done, next week, or it never really even has to be done. Like kind of, it's just helping to kind of prioritize. And then asking yourself questions like, do I have to do that? I wonder if there's a way that this can get done and I don't have to do it. And again, this is kind of broad, but it can be applied to like anything. So for sure your business, but also even your personal life, asking yourself the question, like, I wonder how I could get help, because oftentimes we think that we have to do all of it. There's plenty of people and there's plenty of things that we can outsource, that we can get help. From, or not from, with.
Can I ask you a question on that one? I know I struggle with this sometimes, is I feel guilty asking for help. So how do you get over, like I was raised to just be independent, Alison, figure it out on your own. Mm-hmm. How do you get over, and I want to get back to your list, but how do you get over the feeling of, I feel like I'm a burden, or just do it?
So again, going back to like questioning that thought, like, am I being a burden to others? Well, if you think you are, then maybe you are. But if you think I need some help, and I think the way, and I'll teach you this in just a second, but the guilt is also just a feeling. So you could also feel guilt and still ask anyway, or you could, again, a lot of these things too, you can feel frustrated and do it anyway. You can feel overwhelmed and do it anyway. But again, that's just, I would just say it's just a thought you have to question. Like when people ask you for help, do you feel like it's a burden?
Never.
Yeah. So I mean, just kind of
like that thought's not serving. So get it out of my head.
Right. And again, that's easier said than done sometimes, for sure, for some of them. But just also, I feel like for me personally, I feel like guilt sometimes is kind of like an alarm, or kind of like, I don't know, maybe a stop sign, like pausing for a minute just to really assess why I feel guilty, and then questioning, like, do I want to continue? So maybe if you feel guilty for asking someone, maybe you question like why you're asking someone, like what motives do you have behind it? If you really genuinely need and want the help, then I'm sure people would be thrilled and willing to help. But if it's more so, I kind of think it's just the underlying reason for doing what we do. So sorry, that was a very long explanation.
Perfect. It was
Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So another thing I find, and when I coach people too, I offer this to them. And again, all these are just, for me personally, they've been kind of like the how to of all that stuff, because we hear, we read a ton, we hear a ton, but it's the application and it's the how. So another tool I like to use is called 15, 30, 60. And that is basically you make a list of things that would take approximately 15 minutes, approximately 30, approximately 60. And you write. So this, in the beginning, this might take a little bit more time. And also it can just kind of be an ongoing thing. But then when there's pockets and times in your day where you maybe don't have anything scheduled or planned, and you kind of just have, I don't know, whatever, downtime, free time, which probably a lot of us don't have. But as far as I know for myself, sometimes I'll sit down even for just a second and be like, oh, what should I do? And instead of just sitting, or instead of going to eat, which is like to go get a snack all the time, instead of getting food or instead of watching TV, reference your list. If it's something in your business, if you have 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day is going to add up to a lot. Those little bits of time we need to not over, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. We need to not discount those little bits of time. But so those things you can reference. If you have a little more time, obviously, a 60-minute task you can do, if you write emails or if you batch podcasts, whatever, put that in there. So I just like to do that because then instead of it's taking the decision-making out of it, because all I have to do is go to this list and see what's on the list and just choose something from there, depending on the time I have.
So it's like you're setting up, it's helping you to even go back and set up the decision-making.
Yeah.
When you've already got everything planned out. And I love the 15, 30, 60, because sometimes we have an hour, sometimes we only have 15 minutes. And then saying, I don't have to make a decision. Because I know at the end of the day, I'm so tired of making decisions. Like the worst question in the world at night is, Mom, what's for dinner? I'm like, I don't know. I cannot make one more decision. And so I think this would really help with the decision fatigue, because you already know what to do. Like the list is right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some things I find too, when I have this list or when other people have had it, is like, you also, you'll write stuff on there, but then you'll go back and look at it and be like, oh, that either got done or didn't need to get done or whatever. So it's always evolving and it's always changing, but I find having just that there, again, and it's also helpful to just not store it in your brain, because it's like, oh, I want to remember that. And it's like, just get it out. And then you can just focus your brain on all the other stuff that needs to happen in your life. Okay. Another thing that I like to use is called game time. And I only laugh because I just named it that for lack of a better word. And basically it's just getting a timer. I use a timer for a lot of things, getting a timer and just setting the timer to start. Because a lot of times it's the starting of anything that is sometimes the most tricky. So, again, for example, when I was, back to kind of doing the brain dump, if you have 5 minutes, set your timer for 5 minutes and write for 5 minutes. And a lot of times too, with different things, we end up not doing it because we think it's going to take too much time. Whereas it's like, okay, well, if I can write, if I'm going to do some research for a certain product or whatever, or if you're on, Instagram searching influencers, like setting a timer for 20 minutes, again, it can be any amount of time. But more often than not, if you think, okay, can I do that for 20 minutes? You could be like, yeah, I could do it for 20 minutes. So it's like, okay, set the timer and go. And then also within doing game time is also that you don't get distracted as easily. Because if you're only going to be doing it for 10, 20, 30, however many minutes you're going to be doing it, you're a lot more focused and less likely to get distracted. And if you do get distracted, you're able to come back to it a lot easier. I just know, I just have my own personal email list for my coaching that I do. And I'll set a timer for 30 minutes and kind of challenge myself. Like, do I think I can get an email written in 30 minutes? And I'll set the timer and I'll get started and I'll get going. And more often than not, I can. But again, it's because when those distractions come in, it's a lot easier to kind of dismiss those and not give into those distractions, or, the pop-up, whatever on your computer, or I keep going back to me. I like peanut M&Ms. I'll go grab a bunch of peanut M&Ms. So anyway.
because they're addicting. I swear there's something else besides sugar in there that makes you go back for again.
Yes. I'll just grab a handful. Anyway. Okay. Sorry. One more, or let's see. Two more things. I feel like this is kind of a big thing, these days, or maybe more talked about, but maybe that's just in the realm that I'm in. But basically, most people resist, react, or avoid their emotions. And so resisting, obviously, kind of if you can envision like a beach ball held under the water, it's just kind of there and there's pressure. So you're resisting it. It kind of doesn't look like much. Reacting to it, obviously you're reacting. So maybe you're yelling or throwing things or slamming doors or whatever. And avoiding is obviously avoiding. So maybe you'll go eat or you'll go watch TV or anyway, do any number of things. So I want to offer that we process our emotions. So I'll kind of talk you through this, and then I'll give you a little bit of an example, which hopefully might help to illustrate what I'm talking about. So basically, I like to use the analogy now. So N stands for name it. So basically just saying what you feel. I feel frustrated. I feel overwhelmed. I feel discouraged. I feel blah, 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 anything. So you're naming your emotion, then you open up to it. So that's the O. And basically you're just taking some deep breaths. You also try to pinpoint where you feel it inside your body, because emotions and feelings feel like we feel them somewhere inside of us. Usually it's kind of in your stomach or your chest or your neck or your throat, or even sometimes I know like people, sometimes when this doesn't happen very often, but sometimes when I'm like so frustrated, I feel like I want to cry. And basically it's just a strong emotion. So there's nothing wrong with crying, but it's just, I always am reminding myself like, oh, it's just a strong feeling. So, N is name it. O is open up to it. And then the W is watch it. And that kind of goes back to naming it, describing where it is inside your body. So whatever it is you're feeling, say you feel it in your stomach, you're going to watch it. And basically what that means is you're just continually describing it. Like just describe it in as much detail. Does it have a color? Is it fast or slow or hot or cold or pokey or slimy or whatever? Just get as much description as you can. Now, if you've never done this, it's going to kind of seem a little weird, I think, at least for me in the beginning, it was like, that's odd. But here's the thing. When you're willing to do this, the emotion will like cycle and process through your body and it will go away. So I'll give you a quick example. Well, I have lots of examples, but just last night, my husband and I were talking and just how we want to make some changes in our family and how we want to, anyway, just change some things. Well, I felt like all of a sudden I felt myself kind of feeling mad. And this wasn't even, I don't know, it was just a discussion, but it was interesting because I sat with it and I just was like talking inside my head. And I don't even know how much time went by, maybe 10, 20 minutes, but eventually I couldn't pinpoint it anymore. Like it was gone. I couldn't feel it anymore. And then again, I did this too, just recently, back to this camp I was planning with overwhelm. I was feeling overwhelmed. And for me, I feel it kind of in my throat. Again, sometimes it's tricky to try to describe it, but it would also come and go throughout the day, at least when I was planning this a week or so ago, because of all the thoughts that would pop back up into my head. So it's like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I feel it in my throat. It feels heavy. Sometimes it felt like I wanted to cry. And then also and I can't think of it right at the moment because I'm not feeling it right now, but just allowing it there. And then again, time would go by and I would think on it like, okay, where do I feel the overwhelm? And I couldn't feel it anymore because it had gone away. So that's processing your feelings or processing your emotion.
So how do you make that go away? Because sometimes when I think about it for so long, it just gets stronger and stronger. Like for you, it disappeared. For me, sometimes like the things that I think about, it just grows and grows. Like, what do you do to turn it off?
Well, I think maybe there's some resistance. Maybe you're resisting it. Like maybe you're tightening up against the feeling that's there. I'm not sure. Because sometimes I feel like when we want it to go away so fast, it kind of stays. And again, I think maybe there's some resistance. Okay. So I just one example I can think of, this isn't anyway, hopefully it'll be helpful. But like he hasn't done this for a little while, but I have a son and sometimes he would have a hard time going to sleep. So he would come and tell me like, I can't sleep. I'm worried because then I can't sleep. And I look at the time and then it's later. And I don't know, maybe you guys can relate to this. And I try to tell him like, okay, well, what does that feel like? Anyway, we kind of walk through it. And then it's like, now just try to relax and be okay with, I'm trying to think how to explain, like be okay with not going to sleep. But it's like the more he wants to go to sleep and the more he wants to get rid of feeling worried, the more he feels worried and the more he can't sleep. Does that make sense? So it's kind of, so I think it's more so the relaxing, like taking deep breaths and relaxing and just allowing the feeling to be there.
That makes total sense. Yep.
Even though it doesn't feel good at all.
And that's I guess it's the pressure or the resisting, right? The beach ball.
I think so. Yeah. Cause you're resisting it. Whereas if you really, and this is helpful too, to write. If you have time or have a few minutes, like write this down. Like I'm feeling this and I feel it here. And this is what it feels like. And then just really sit with it. I kind of like to also envision like, I don't know, like you're laying in bed or you're sitting on the couch and you have like a nice cozy blanket on you. And it's like, you're just kind of like opening up the blanket and a little bit of like cold air is coming in. And it's like, you're just allowing it to be there. It's kind of uncomfortable, but just allowing it versus like holding tight to keep the blanket on. So don't let it come in. It's kind of I don't know. I think that might be part of it is just the resistance.
Okay. I love it. Do you have another one?
Okay. Sorry. Another one. Yeah. Bridging thoughts. So thoughts that you believe that will help you to move forward instead of keeping you stuck. So just for example, again, back to maybe, business and maybe trying to choose a product or different, those types of things. Like instead of thinking, oh, this is hard, I can't figure this out, or I don't know what to do. Think of a thought that's maybe just a step. Like you could even think of a ladder, like what would be the next rung that you're going to? So it might be like, I'm figuring this out, or this is hard for me, I'm going to do it anyway. Or another one I like to think like, oh, of course this is hard, I've never done it before. Mm-hmm. That was back to this girls' camp that I just planned. I've never planned one before. And so it was uncomfortable and it was hard. And it was like, well, I just had to remind myself like, well, of course this is hard. You've never done this before. And again, that doesn't make it like, oh, okay, I can do it. And all's fine and, dandy. But it was like, okay, yeah, it's okay. I can figure this out is another one.
I like how you say that because, the whole like affirmations, like, oh, I'm going to be I'm a millionaire. Like I'm writing it and your brain's like, no, you're not. I remember when I first started and I was like, million seems so far away. So I had to go back and say, okay, what am I? Okay, I can sell $10 online. I can decide on a product. I can do this. I had to let my brain accept that and prove it to be able to grow to where I wanted to. So I love that you're saying, like, just take that one ring up, like one step up instead of trying to get to the top of the ladder and your brain saying, whoa, hang on. No, you can't. You're not there. I feel like you have to train your brain to believe the things that you can do by actually proving to your brain that it's possible.
Yeah, you just reminded me of another thing I like to use anyway, personally, and when I coach people is kind of just like what you said, but I like to think of like a camera lens. So like when you take a picture of something, you can zoom in or you can zoom out. And, maybe for you zooming out, you were kind of on the big picture. Like I want to make $1 million, but how in the world am I going to do that? There's no way that can happen. And instead you zoomed in, like I can make $10. I could sell this one thing. So again, I don't know, if you guys are setting up a business and setting up a shop, like, again, there's all these steps and all these things that need to happen, but that's the zoom out. That's the big picture. That's like overwhelming to think about. But if you zoom in, what would be one thing I could do today? Or what would be, again, and so that kind of goes along with bridging thoughts, but like, questioning the thoughts that you have, but then also trying to find one. And that's the other kind of key to all these things too, is they have to be believable to you. Mm-hmm. Because, what one person uses and talks about may work for them, but it may not work for you. So that's where I also find is really helpful when you are doing like a brain dump and just getting it all out there. What are those thoughts? What are the ones that are holding you back? If you can't take action on this thing, like why? Why is that? Here's another interesting thing too, is that it's easier for us to not know, to be kind of back to the indecision, to be undecided, than to make a decision and move forward with it. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't know, that's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to choose. I don't know, which influencer to reach out to. So we kind of like, let ourselves off the hook versus like, I wonder if I could find one influencer in my niche, zooming into to make it more bite size. And I think someone had mentioned like what did they say? Baby steps or baby goals, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Hey, now this is so good. The 15, 30, 60, game time, bridging thoughts, the now. Oh, and there was like 5 more. I was all writing them down. You've been coaching a lot of new entrepreneurs or very successful entrepreneurs for almost a year. Has it been maybe 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
This in the fall, it'll be a year. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think the biggest battle? Do you think it is the overwhelm and the overthinking or more of the decision making? What do you suggest people lean into first as they're coming up against building a business?
That's a good question. I think.
Or where's the stumbling block that you see a lot of people run into? Is it choosing a product? Is it believing in their pricing? Mm-hmm. Is it getting it listed? What do you feel like the number one issue is?
I think it's the belief in themselves.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you guys probably see it all the time. You have someone that sells t-shirts over here, and you have someone else that also sells t-shirts. And this person, maybe he's making a little sale here and there and doing a little bit. This person is like doing tons and killing it. It comes back to the belief in like yourself, in that I can do this. Like the product honestly probably doesn't matter. It does matter, but like, it's not necessarily the product. Like you could believing in your product and you like your product and that others would benefit from having this product, you're going to be successful. I'll give you one quick example of a lady I just coached in this previous round. She was selling like dog collars with like a personalized, dog tag that had certain things on them. Anyway, I'm not a dog person, so I don't know how many. I mean, I know a lot of people are, and I know that applies to a lot of people, but every time I talked to her, she was like, we're doing this. We love it. Like my friend's putting this on there, that thing, blah, blah, blah. She's putting it on, the marketplace. She's putting it on all these different sites. And she's believing that this dog collar, these things are going to be successful. So then what happens is when she believes that they're going to be successful, she's going to have a feeling inside of her body, which helps her to then take the action that she wants to get to the, whatever the money that she wants and the success of that. So I think a lot of times too, it's easy to spend time in indecision. Like, again, back to like, well, I don't know which product, but if you challenge yourself and decide like, okay, I'm going to do this. And again, back to what I said, as far as like an amount of time, and then go all in. That's another thing too, is going all in on it. And again, I don't think that means like we have to spend hours and hours and hours, but deciding on the thing and then sticking with that thing versus always kind of like being wishy-washy on, well, I mean, it's kind of back to even like where I'm at in coaching, like people deciding on a niche, like, well, should I coach on weight loss or relationships or da-da-da? And it's like, you're going to find so many people in every certain area that are killing it and being really successful and also not. And so it's like, okay, well, what's the difference? Like, what's going on? And it's back to, in my opinion, I feel like the belief. And so if there's one thing too, I feel like that would help you with the belief in yourself is also maybe finding someone that's similar to you, that's doing kind of what you want to be doing, and asking yourself, like, I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder what and not necessarily so much what they're doing. I mean, yes, that's part of it for sure. We have to take action, but what are they thinking? Are they thinking like, I don't know, this is probably not going to work? Probably not. They're probably thinking like, wonder what else I could try. I'm going to do that. I'm going to wonder what else I could try. I just thought of one other example really quickly that I'll share with you that hopefully might help to illustrate this. Back to my camp that I was at, each day we had like Tupperware jars, whatever, 5 of them each day that I, prior to going, had counted candy in them. So there's, Swedish fish and Hershey Kisses. Anyway, any types of different candy. And one of the girls the last day asked me, can I help you count them? And I said, well, I've already counted them. They're all done. I know all the numbers. She's like, well, I just never win. I can't do it. I wanted to help you. And I said, well, I said, did you try? Did you guess the other days? And she said, no, she hadn't even tried to guess. So for sure, she's not going to win. So if you don't even try anything, so she's making that true for herself. She's telling herself, okay, I can't win these things. Like I never win. And so she doesn't even try. Doesn't even put a guess in at all. Cause then she's like, well, I'm really bad at it. And I just don't know how many. I'm like, well, that's the fun of it. You just throw out a number or try. So interesting. The last day I told her, I said, you have to do it. There was 5 of them. I said, I want you to do all of them. I said, you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So it's worth a shot. Anyway, long story short, she won one of the things the last day because I told her, I said, you have to do it. And I was so thrilled that she won. Obviously it was not rigged at all. She totally won, but I was just thrilled because it's like, I said, see, like if you try, you can do it.
I love that you end on that story because that was so much of it is really not about the process. It's just believe in yourself and go forward and just try. Something's going to stick. The odds of you keep going, it's bound to happen. It's bound to work. So I love that you said that. Love that you said that. Okay. Megan, where can people find you? Do you have an Instagram account?
I do. Yeah. So I have an Instagram at Megan Whitesides Coaching. I also have a website at meganwhitesides.com. I coach, like I say, personally, mostly relationships, but this pertains, like all these tools pertain to any and everything. Like, and obviously in your program, I've coached a lot of people doing their businesses, and
they love
really
you.
Fun.
They absolutely love you.
It's really fun.
Yeah, you've got some really good tools. Thank you so much for sharing all these amazing tools with everybody. Isn't it interesting? Like when people think that when I ever talk about like life coaching or mindset, they're like, no, just give me the facts. They already have most of the facts. They just need help up here. Whether it's why are you not choosing? Why are you not going forward? Why are you overthinking it? And then once they realize that, then they're like, oh, now once was a wall. Now they can see a window and they can move forward. So I love that Megan was able to come in and give us some actual tools to be able to use in everyday life. How many of you are writing 15, 30, 60 getting your timer set up, starting to bridge your thoughts. And then would I say nowing it? I don't even know. Now. Wow, that podcast episode, all the tools that Megan gave us, the 15, 30, 60, bridging thoughts, game times, the now. Oh, I hope your mind is spinning with all good things on how to create that clarity, make decision, stop overthinking, and to move forward. So I want to give you the top 10 takeaways. I probably could have done, another 15 on top of this one. It was so good. All right, let's dive into it with number 1. Decision. And making a decision is taking way too much of our time. We create drama when more than likely we don't need to create drama around it, which leads us to number 2, just choose something and go forward with it. Number 3, set a time frame on that decision making. Number 4, if something is fun and easy, guess what? You're going to stick to it. So when you're trying to make a decision, look at the fun and the easy side of it. Go with that one first. Number 5, when things get hard, that doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. That could be the thing that you need to help you to build the tools to be able to move forward. Number 6, write down all the things that are in your brain that are overwhelming you and causing the lack of ability to make a decision. Write it all down. Get it out of your head. Number 7, then after you write everything down, question and prioritize the things that you have on your list. Do they really help you? Do you really need to do them? Do you need to do it first, or can it wait till the very end? Number 8, cross some of those things out. there's probably some things on that list you really don't even have to do. Number 9, bridge those thoughts so that your brain will start to believe the things that you are saying that you can do. Number 10, the number 1 stumbling block is going to be your belief in yourself. Start believing in yourself. Let's move forward. And then I just have to throw in a number 11 because it was so good. If you don't try, it's never going to happen. All right. I hope you loved that podcast episode and have a bajillion tools in your toolbox to help you move forward and get your Because I Can life up and running, rocking and rolling. All right. I'll see you next week on Because I Can Life podcast. Bye.